Well, hey everybody, Andy here. Thanks for joining me today. And today we're going to be talking about the Garmin inReach Mini. It is the best-selling, personal satellite communicator on the market today, but it's been out there for now a couple years. Is it still the best out there? And if you're new to the channel, this channel is all about backpacking, outdoor adventures, and gear. Most definitely gear. And a few tips and tricks along the way too. So if any of those things interest you, consider subscribing, and then you'll be alerted every time I post new content. And there is a lot of new content coming. So sit back and relax, and let's dive right in. So the Garmin inReach line has been out now for a few years, and the Mini, which is their smallest, lightest, most compact unit, has been a fan favorite in the backpacker community now for a couple years. And for good reason. There are many, many good things going about this small, compact, little satellite communicator. And today I'm going to go through 4 of the main reasons why I carry this in my personal kit and why you should probably consider carrying it as well. But I'm also going to go through a few different reasons that I think, maybe this needs to see a little bit of an update or an improvement. Plus, I'm also going to go through at the very end a few competitors that have now come onto the scene just in the last year or so that now make me wonder, is this really the best out there? So I'm going to talk a little bit about those so that you know if you're considering something like this, here's a few others that you should also look at first before making that purchase. So the first reason why you should consider looking at this and why it's been one of the best-selling satellite communicators on the market today is a global, that's right, a worldwide SOS emergency capability. And what that means is, having something like this allows you to communicate with emergency responders, search and rescue. If you're somewhere off the grid and you need help, how to get in contact and have an interactive conversation with those emergency responders. So if you slip and fall and you break your leg and you're able to reach the outside world, you can give your situation, what's going on, details. You can give your location. They'll be able to pull your location, but then also you'll be able to coordinate with rescuers as they're getting closer to you to actually identify exactly where you are. So having an interactive, a two-way communication, not just sending out an alert, hey, I need help, this is where I am. You can actually give details. This is what's happened. This is what kind of rescue I need. All of that information is immensely valuable for, an emergency satellite communicator. Now, the second reason kind of piggybacks off that first one. So it has a two-way capability. You can communicate by text messaging, not only to emergency personnel, but now you can also do that for personal reasons. So you can keep in contact with family and loved ones as you're off grid in the backcountry. As long as you've got a view of the sky, you're able to make contact. And it comes in multiple different ways. You can do direct text messages to someone's cell phone. You can do text to email, which will send a message out to someone's email address. You can do both at the same time. You can also link it to send to social media. So if you wanted to drop a Twitter account, for example, that people can follow about your trip and you're going to post all your messages, all your updates to that, now you can throw it into social media. And lastly, it also has the ability for location sharing and tracking. So you can set the device up to share your trip so that people can log into a password protected website and follow along as you drop in waypoints and messages and update your track through GPS from the device. So not only are you communicating to them, but if they want to go look in between messages and just see where you are and what progress you're making, they can log into your specific site through Garmin and follow along your progress along the trail. Now, the third reason that I bring the Garmin inReach with me is weather updates. The ability to pull weather forecasts for my exact location whenever I need it. So, if I'm going on a longer trip, and I can look at that forecast for, 5 days out, but weather patterns change. And, what I think is supposed to be coming on day 4 or 5, once I leave, may change. So the ability to get up and pull in a detailed weather forecast for my exact location whenever I need it is amazingly useful. So that's something that makes that device worthy of coming on my trips every time I go out off the grid. And lastly, the fourth reason why I personally bring this with me is just how small, light, compact, rugged this device actually is. You've got IPX or the IP67 rating, meaning the water resistance. You can blast this thing with a hose and it's going to be able to withstand that. So taking it out into the backcountry where you're going to get nasty weather from time to time, I don't worry about that being an issue. Dropping this thing, it's very tough, it's very rugged. I don't worry about this thing being damaged as I'm out in the backcountry. And kind of piggybacking on that also is not only is it small, compact, but it's amazingly reliable. I have never had issues sending and receiving messages as long as I have a clear sight of the sky. If you're down in ravines, if you're under tree canopies, you are going to have some issues potentially. But as soon as you can get out into a field, have an open view of the sky, it's amazingly consistent how well this connects to send and receive messages. Now, one of the other reasons that I do like it, I like that I can connect to my cell phone. I'm always bringing a cell phone with me, typically for my maps. I don't rely on this for my GPS, but having my cell phone with me and I can pair it to this device makes it easier to send out custom text messages. You can always preset 3 different messages that you can send, and I find that most of the messages that I'm sending are those preset ones. I'm starting from this point. I'm at camp for the night, everything's great, and I'm just checking in, everything's great. Those probably cover 90% of the messages that I'm sending, but I like having the feature of being able to pair my phone and being able to get in and through the app, customize messages, send those out, figure out who I want to send them to, all of that stuff. So now I'm also very practical about this, and this thing is not perfect, and there are definitely some drawbacks to this device that I look forward in possibly the next generation that I think could make this an absolute home run. The interface with the cell phone is a little clunky. Not all of the features that you can do on the device, for example, can you do through the phone. There's some things that you have to do specifically through the device, and there's some things that when you do them through the phone are just not as intuitive as they could be. I'd also like to see the app incorporate, if you do have cell phone coverage in that section, can you send and receive messages through cell or satellite depending on where you are. I think that would be a nice feature. Now, I briefly mentioned it earlier too. I don't use this for mapping. There's no map feature. The screen is so tiny on this, it'd probably be pretty worthless. I use my cell phone for maps, so I'm typically using other services. It does have the EarthMate app, but the mapping is extremely basic, and I don't find it very useful on my trips. There's other apps out there that are much better, more robust in the backcountry, so I don't rely on maps for that. And for me, that's not a deal breaker. A lot of the other satellite communicators out there don't have that too. If you do want that, you go with the Garmin inReach, the larger version, because it has the full screen, the color screen, and a much more robust, GPS mapping capability. But for me, this is purely more of just the satellite communicator with GPS. Now, a few other features that I'd love to see built into the new generation device whenever that may come out. This has the old micro USB connector port, so you can charge this on the go. If you're out in the backcountry, I typically have my cell phone, I've got a camera, I've got this device, and I've got a battery bank that I bring with me. So, having it USB rechargeable is great and a convenience factor, but I'd love to see them upgrade that to the more, modern USB-C connector piece that everybody's moving to. And I'd also love to see this come with some kind of a fast charge or quick charge capability. It's not terrible. It does have quite a long battery life, and on all the trips that I've done that have been less than 4 days, I've never had to recharge the device on trail. If I'm going longer than that, I do get into situations where I do need to recharge it, but shorter ones I typically don't. Again, I'm only checking this periodically. You can set it to be kind of constant, more frequent, and it's going to drain the battery a little bit more, or you can set it to be longer intervals between message checks and things like that, which can extend your battery. So I've never had issues with battery life, but I would like to see some of the just newer connectivity built into it. So I'd love to see a USB-C instead of the USB micro, and I'd like to see some of the quick charge technology built into this as well. Now, it's kind of difficult to evaluate these compared to other ones, just because not only do you have to look through all the feature sets, but there's also subscriptions to these. So, obviously you're connecting to the Iridium satellite network. You got to have a subscription to do that. And there's different tiers. So you can look at, an annual plan. There's, I believe, 3 different levels, or you can go to a month-by-month plan, which also has 3 different levels. So there's tons of different features. I'm going to leave that link down below, along with all the specs and all the information, this list that I put together too of pros and cons, so that you can go down and review those. I find that for me, I'm using more of the month-to-month subscription. I'm paying a $20 a year, I believe it is, activation charge to keep the account active for the year. And then I'm just going in and paying for, 1 month at a time intervals when I'm doing my trip. So, this year I believe I'll have 4 larger trips that I'm taking this with me. So for those 4 months, I'm paying, some level of connectivity. How many messages do I need? You typically get all your preset messages unlimited for free with that subscription. And then your custom messages and weather reports and other things like that increase. There's kind of a price point for all of those different things. So you'd have to go and look at those and figure out, just how robust. Do I need unlimited? Do I only need, 50 text messages? Do I only need 15 with unlimited preset messages included? You have to figure out what's best for you. I do like the flexibility that I can customize. But, segueing into the final piece of this video too is, how does the marketplace compare? And we're starting to see other competitors come on. They typically all have subscription plans similar to what Garmin has, but some of them, in my opinion, may provide a little better value. How many texts do they allow at what price point? All of those different things kind of come into play, and look at, not only are you looking at your startup costs of buying the unit, but you're also looking at what's my ongoing cost of month to month, year to year for that specific device. And that factors in. So with all that being said, I've had this now for a little over a year. I've had a chance to put it through its paces. I've been extremely impressed. This is a key essential piece of my kit. Anytime I'm going somewhere where cell phone reception may be even spotty, I'm typically going to have this with me, just because it provides me peace of mind. It provides my family peace of mind. If there's an emergency at home, they can reach me. If there's some emergency on trail, I can reach them, or I can reach emergency responders. So having that peace of mind, especially if you're out in the backcountry and you're doing solo trips, something like this where you don't have anybody else to rely on, becomes even more valuable, in my opinion. Now, there's 2 main competitors that are newer to the market that I think are worth mentioning, and I'm going to put their information down below too, so you can go check that out. One is Zoleo, and I'll show that here up above. It's a nice compact satellite communicator. It's a little larger and heavier than the Garmin inReach Mini, but it has a lot of features that make it very compelling. The biggest of which seems to be the unified messaging app and just ease of use of it. One thing you'll notice about the Garmin inReach, if you've had a chance to use it, is it's not the most intuitive, and especially when you're pairing it with a cell phone, there's a little bit of clunkiness to it. I'd love to see that refined. But the Zaleo has kind of the reputation that it has things like unified messaging. So it's, you can compose a message and send it. It'll send it over cell phone if you have a connection at that period of time, that point in time, from that, your standard number that Zaleo will give you. Or if you don't have cell service at that location, it's going to send it through the Iridium network as well and still come from the same number. So if you're having a conversation with somebody as you're hiking on trail, it's always coming from the same number, that entire conversation. It just may be partially sent over cell phone, or it may be partially sent over satellite. So that's kind of a unique feature. Now, you still have a new number that you have to give everybody, that while I'm on trail, you're going to text me from this number. But once they get that figured out, the entire conversation is going to be under that number. So that's kind of a nice feature. I'd actually like to see something like that built into the next generation Garmin inReach Mini. Now, the other one is the second generation of the Bivy stick, the Bivy Stick Blue. Major upgrades from the first one, from all reports and the research that I've done too. It's actually lighter, just barely, than the Garmin inReach Mini. So from a portability standpoint, it's pretty impressive. And it's got a lot of the great same features and even price point that the Garmin inReach has. It's $350. The Zaleo is $199. So the Zaleo also has that price point going for it. But the Bivy stick at $350, okay, we're in the same price range. It's got a lot of the same features. It's weather resistance, the two-way communication, all these different factors, and the subscriptions too are at different points. So you don't have, annual contracts, I believe, and what you get at each level is different. So it's worth comparing. Go look at Garmin, go look at the Bivy Stick Blue, and look at their subscription plans and just compare and figure out which fits you the best. Which ones would I use more of? Which one looks like the long-term cost is going to be greater? But as far as connectivity, as far as SOS, interactive, person-to-person communication through text or by email, location sharing, all these different things that make the inReach so great. Now it looks like the Bivy Stick, in a small, compact form factor as well, has that going on also. So is this still the king? I would say at this point in time, just because this has so much usage out there, so much documentation, how well this thing works, how consistently reliable it is, I would still put this as my number one device. I'm just super intrigued by the other two, especially Zaleo at a lower price point, $199, and the Bivy Stick with kind of a robust options from subscriptions and all the features that you find here in a lighter weight form factor, make that pretty interesting too. So lots to sort through, lots to pick and choose. Hopefully you found this valuable. If you have, please go ahead and give me a like. That helps the channel. I really, really appreciate that. Again, all that information is going to be down below to help you sort through, links to go find everything that you need. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, be well.